To introduce our speaker, I'd like to call forward Professor Lisa Newton. Lisa is a distinguished professor in ethics at Fairfield University in Connecticut. Lisa.
Thank you very much. Actually, I am I'm still a professor of philosophy, but I'm a former director of the program in applied ethics at Fairfield University, which has been taken over very ably by David Schmidt, whom some of you know, and a former director of the program in environmental studies at Fairfield University, which has been taken over very competently by David Downey. He's got a good deal of UN experience in environmental matters. And
It's over so you're not looking into the light.
Oh, okay. That's a
Helps
good
your
idea.
eyes.
Yes,
You go.
thank you.
Yeah.
Good. I thought I was just going blind. All right. It is my great pleasure to introduce as our luncheon speaker Lila Karbassi, who is the General Manager and Environmental Leader at United Nations Global Compact, the world's largest voluntary corporate citizenship initiative. 8,000 participants in 135 countries. Ms. Karbassi started her position with the United Nations Global Compact in New York in 2005. She's currently responsible for the management of its office, as well as the initiative's work on Rio Plus 20 and environmental issues. In the past years, Ms. Karbassi facilitated the launch and development of the Caring for Climate initiative, endorsed by more than 370 companies from 65 countries. The initiative assists companies in the development of climate change policies, while also providing a channel for business to contribute inputs to governmental deliberations. Prior to her position at the UNGC, Ms. Karbassi worked for several years in the field of international affairs in the pharmaceutical industry in Paris. Ms. Karbassi holds a master's in biology from the University of Paris and a master's in business administration from the Bocconi School of Management in Milan, Italy. She's going to be talking about Rio Plus 20, which is an important milestone and an important initiative for the United Nations. She'll be setting the sustainability agenda for the next initiatives in this field. Okay? Is she ever ready to go? Great.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Lisa. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today to speak about the preparations on the Rio Plus 20 conference, the Conference on Sustainable Development that will take place in Brazil in 2012. Since this is lunchtime and I have to compete for your attention with the food and the dessert, I will try to make this a brief presentation. Sustainable development is an issue that the Global Compact has been tackling for a number of years already, and we very much hope that the accumulated knowledge and experience of the companies in the initiative will serve as an important contribution to the Rio Plus 20 process. As Lisa was saying, Rio Plus 20 is an important milestone for the United Nations. It has the potential to set the sustainability agenda for the next decade and hopefully even beyond that. So before looking at what the business contribution to Rio can be, let me first start with a few elements on the Rio Plus 20 intergovernmental process itself. And for those who are not familiar with this event, this is a conference that will take place in Rio next year on 4, 5, 6 June. It's 10 years after the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg in 2002, and it's 20 years after the Earth Summit in Rio in 92. The conference has 3 objectives: renew political commitment to sustainable development. And in that sense, the nature of the conference is quite different from the annual climate negotiations meeting that are taking place, the COP15 in Copenhagen, the Cancun meeting the year after. And these meetings essentially are trying to aim at a legal agreement with the ultimate goal to establish greenhouse gas emission reduction targets country by country. Here with the Rio Plus process, what the UN is trying to do is to get political agreement for sustainable development. Second objective is to assess progress and gaps in implementing sustainable development measures. And third is to address new and emerging challenges. So the conference is focusing on two themes. The first one is the green economy in the context of sustainable development and poverty reduction. And on that topic, I would like to point out to a recent report, very informative and comprehensive, that was published by the United Nations Environment Programme, that looks at the green economy across 10 sectors of the economy and the different types of investments and scenarios that could happen to lead to a low-carbon world. The second theme for the conference is about the governance of international environmental affairs and is looking at institutional frameworks for sustainable development. So the Rio intergovernmental process, which has started already a year ago, has now set a very clear timeline for its negotiations. And the goal ultimately will be to find a consensus among all 192 UN member states of what the roadmap to a more sustainable future could look like. And of course, many parts of society, including business, but also civil society, academia, youth, have a very important stake in this agenda, and they should work in very close collaboration with governments to design this roadmap. So in the case of business, we know that the role of companies in sustainable development has considerably changed since the Earth Summit in '92. And today, there's a growing number of companies that are committed to integrating sustainability directly into the DNA of their operations, their strategy, and their supply chain. And our hope is that Rio will be a catalyst for business action so that sustainable development can become a long-term business strategy for growth. And more specifically, from the standpoint of the Global Compact, our hope is that Rio will help accomplish three things. One is scale up and intensify the business contribution to global sustainability. And this can be done by making a very clear business case for companies everywhere to integrate universal principles into their strategies, into their operations, throughout their value chain. And one way to bring the sustainability agenda more mainstream into market is to call, for instance, for a higher number of companies to join the Global Compact. And the UN Secretary General himself has set a goal of 20,000 companies by 2020. Second accomplishment is to develop effective incentives and policy measures to accelerate the transformation towards low-carbon economy. And the third accomplishment is to mobilize more collaboration between business, governments, industry, civil society, academia, and other actors, so that we can identify the most promising solutions and technologies. And as we're searching for these innovative solutions, we need to look around the priority themes for the Rio +20 conference. We know that the priority themes will be, first of all, energy, with a very heavy focus on sustainable access to sustainable energy for all, which will be the theme for the UN in 2012. There are other important components in the energy agenda, such as clean means of energy production and, of course, energy efficiency. The second theme is urbanization, everything that revolves around city, building, transport, waste management, which is a very big challenge. And the third theme is poverty reduction, with food and water security and sustainability being two important aspects. So in terms of the contribution of the Global Compact, if we look at the environmental aspects only, 3 of the Global Compact principles are derived directly from the Rio Declaration of '92. And just 4 years ago, the Global Compact initiated 2 environmental platforms that are here to help give practical meaning to these environmental principles. And these are platforms on the issues of climate change and water sustainability. The first one is Caring for Climate, which is now supported by 400 companies in 65 countries. And the second one is the CO Water Mandate, which is supported by 80 companies around the world. And both initiatives have made very good progress in demonstrating business solutions to achieve a low-carbon economy and to address water sustainability issues. One of the tools that was developed with one of our academic partners, Duke University, is the Environmental Stewardship Strategy. And this is a resource that guides companies on how to address in a holistic way a range of environmental issues, climate change, water, but also ecosystem services, biodiversity, and so on. So our goal is to bring the outcomes of this work to Rio with the objective on the one hand to demonstrate the proven ability of business to strategically address very important environmental issues, and on the other hand, to use the opportunity at Rio to further advance these issues. In the coming months, we will hold a number of preparatory meetings to build the momentum towards Rio. So, for instance, the topic of our upcoming Global Compact annual event, which will be in Copenhagen in May, is on the preparations for Rio. The contributions that business can make, the progress made so far, and the expectations that companies have for governments. And the next meeting of this kind, our annual meeting, will be held in Rio itself in May 2012, a few weeks before the Rio Plus 20 conference. So we looked very briefly at the environmental portfolio of the Global Compact and how this could make an important contribution to Rio, but there are a number of other working groups and platforms that the Global Compact is working on, which are directly relevant for the objectives of Rio. And this is, for instance, the working group that we have on anti-corruption issues. This is the Women's Empowerment Principles platform that was recently launched. This is the Principles for Responsible Management Education, the PRI, Principles for Responsible Investment Education, Principles for Responsible Investment, and the work that they do with stock exchange, and so on. So all these initiatives will be meeting also next year in Rio to review progress and hopefully to inspire more action towards sustainability. So last but certainly not least, the Global Compact has entered in an important coalition also with the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, the WBCSD. And we have formed a temporary and inclusive entity that is called BASD, Business Action for Sustainable Development. And this BASD will represent the constructive voice of business in the UN Rio Plus 20 negotiation process. It is chaired by Mr. Chad Holliday, who's currently the chairman of Bank of America. He's the former CEO of DuPont. And in the coming weeks, we will have 15 industry association partners from different industry sectors that will join the BASD coalition and that will help us establish the work plan for this entity. Here are a few examples of the activities that BASD will undertake. We will provide input, policy input to the Rio Plus 20 process. BASD will demonstrate and showcase that business is committed to providing the market-based solutions to sustainability. BASD will seek to engage business in partnerships to promote and advance sustainability issues. A number of very important contributions that can be made. So, in conclusion, I would just like to say that depending on where you're coming from, whether you're a student, a company, an NGO, and a member of faculty, and so on, there will be many engagement opportunities towards Rio. And we very much hope that all of you present in this room will align with the Global Compact. For the companies, for instance, we would hope that you would join our environmental platforms, Caring for Climate and the Water Mandate, and that we can work together and use this momentum to contribute to further establish sustainability practices into markets. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here, and thanks for your attention.
I think those sustainability issues are really interesting, and I was And so I was wondering if you could just kind of expand further on, with the companies that signed on, what work they're doing, or if there's any projects that are currently in progress in order to address this important need.
Sure, no, that's a great question.
You might have to say the question.
Sorry?
Repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
What is the work of the CEO Water Mandate, and what are what are the companies that signed up to the initiative currently doing towards Rio? So everyone can understand the question. So there are 80 companies, 80, that have endorsed the CEO Water Mandate. The endorsement comes from the CEO of these companies, and then the work is undertaken at the operational level by the companies, by the people in the companies that are directly involved with water sustainability and water security issues. For the moment, the Water Mandate has worked on two streams of activities. One is on public policy engagement, and the second one is on disclosure on water sustainability practices. So, for instance, on disclosure, what the mandate did is bring together a number of companies, NGOs, governments, other stakeholders, communities, to understand what kind of guideline companies could use to disclose their best practices on water management issues. And this is a space that was not occupied for the moment, and the disclosure guideline that was developed by the Water Mandate is the first of its kind. So this is the type of work that the mandate is doing. Yeah.
Are you going to be around for a while?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Remember later.